pineapple. And I brought my boy with me, say what up to Tata. Still sipping matcha, sit courtside, next to that, give me high five. Nigga, I just like that, I'm super referee. Tell by my attitude that I'm most definitely yeah. And you say New York City. Yeah.
From the very beginning, for Sean Corey Carter, writing was easy, with words constantly filling his mind. Born in Brooklyn in 1969, he remembers how for days he filled page after page of a notebook. Then he would bang out a beat on the table, his bedroom window, whatever had a flat surface. He would practice from the time he woke up until the time he went to sleep.
Jay-Z was raised in the Marcy projects in New York, which are some of the truly worst areas in New York. You know, you have a lot of rap artists singing about growing up in the hood or in the ghetto who were middle class or who were like Kanye West with a mother who was a professor in university. But Jay-Z actually grew up in the projects. It's authentically real when he sings about that.
Carter's father left when he was just a child, and his mother, Gloria, raised him in Marcy houses, a black community that has generated a stream of musical talent, from the notorious B.I.G. to Lil' Kim, Mos Def to Aaliyah. The neighborhood was, however, also seen as ground zero in Black America's battle with the crack cocaine epidemic of the 1980s. Carter has referred to the 27 six-story buildings that make up the projects as huge islands built mostly in the middle of nowhere, designed to warehouse lives that keep the struggles of the urban poor invisible to the larger country. Carter remembers having to dodge glass shards that lined the grassy patches that passed for a park while playing touch football, and unresponsive heroin addicts collapsed on benches. While still a preteen, Carter came across a group of young kids spitting rhymes in a cipher, and that very night, he began writing his own verses. Writing these raps was like therapy, and he recalls how his mother bought him a 3-ring binder for him to write in. The paper in the binder was unlined, and he filled every blank space on each page. He said how his rhymes looked chaotic and crowded against one another. Some were vertical, some slanting into the corners, but when he looked at them, the order was clear in his mind. This creative outlet meant everything to him, and he has said, "We needed to hear our stories told back to us, so maybe we could start to understand it ourselves." As the 80s progressed, Carter became even more involved in the hip-hop scene, a music and dance genre from the Bronx that was rapidly transforming youth culture. Subwoofers and speakers 7 feet tall filled the landscape of the courtyards at the Marcy houses, the epic battles shaking the projects to their core. Unfortunately, hip-hop was not the only product of the 1980s, altering the surroundings of the Marcy houses and the neighboring area. When the crack epidemic hit the projects he lived in, Carter remembers, what had been was gone, and in its place was a new way of life that was suddenly everywhere and seemed like it had been there forever. Unlike cocaine users, crackheads have no shame in using the drug publicly, in the Marcy corridors and playgrounds, on the stairs and apartment hallways. People whom Carter had seen as authority figures were now part of a new zombie class. Uncles, aunts, old relatives, and neighbors were lost to addiction. It wasn't long until Carter found himself embroiled in the sorry business, selling crack to those around him.
His upbringing was difficult and hard, and he became a drug dealer. He was no stranger to crime. He was no stranger to drugs, and he was no stranger to walking around with a gun.
His oldest brother, Eric, had become addicted to crack, and at just 12 years old, Carter shot his brother in the shoulder for stealing his ring. In his song, You Must Love Me, he wrote about the incident. Saw the devil in your eyes, high off more than weed, confused. I just closed my young eyes and squeezed. What a sound. Open my eyes just in time to see you stumbling to the ground. Eric didn't press charges. In fact, when Carter visited him in the hospital, his brother apologized for what crack had turned him into. The story haunts him to this day, but he has never shied away from talking about it and realizes just how lucky he was when he was hustling on the streets. My life after childhood has two main stories, the story of the hustler and the story of the rapper, and the two overlap as much as they diverge.
Sink into the abyss of a new dark age, made more sinister and perhaps more protracted by the lights of perverted sorrow.
Carter recalls that he was living his life on the streets from the age of 13. When talking about the allure of being a drug-pushing hustler, something he claims to not have given up until the very eve of the release of his debut album, Reasonable Doubt, in 1996. In his autobiography, he admits that life was hard and dangerous. Guys my age, fed up with watching their moms struggle on a single income, were paying utility bills with money from hustling, and acknowledges that, as the crack game exploded, young men wore automatic weapons like they were sneakers. Some critics argue that he is so far removed from that scenario, now that he is a superstar featured in magazines, owns his own businesses, and has won Grammys, that he has lost the right to rap about that life. Carter's response to this criticism is clear. How distant is the story of your own life ever going to be? The feelings I had during that part of my life were burned into me like a brand. It was life during wartime. I was part of a generation of kids who saw something special about what it means to be human. Something bloody and dramatic and scandalous that happened right here in America. And hip-hop was our way of reporting that story, telling it to ourselves and to the world. The 1997 song, Where I'm From, paints a grim picture of his life in Marcy projects. In this clip from the music video, it is clear that even on Jay's second album, he is not trying to shy away from his real-life story, the hustler.
Catch cases, hoping to judge R&Rs, but most times find themselves locked up behind bars, that all. I'm from where they ball and breed rhyme stars. I'm from Marcy, son. Just thought I'd remind y'all. Cough up a lung where I'm from, Marcy, son. Ain't nothing nice in many places, but I'm Brooklyn's own. Cough up a lung where I'm from, Marcy, son. Ain't nothing nice in many places, but I'm Brooklyn's own. Cough up a lung where I'm from, Marcy, son. Ain't nothing nice in many places, but I'm Brooklyn's own.
When he was very passionate about rapping, I think for him, rapping was a way to escape some of what was going on in his real world. And it was something he was naturally very gifted at. So he was around 19 and he started rapping with Jazzo, and they actually collaborated on a song that went on to get on MTV. And that was kind of his first toehold in fame and show business.
In Carter's early days, he acted as his mentor and pushed him to explore his musical talents. Jazz scored a record deal before Carter and invited his protege to London with him to record some new music. Jazz's album tanked after a poor decision was made for his first single. He went from being courted at the highest level to not having the people at EMI return his calls. The executives who had withdrawn their support from Jazz were then trying to contact Carter for a solo project. Given the way his mentor had been treated, Carter temporarily gave up his dreams of a rap recording contract. He went back to hustling, but his first real big break was soon to come. After being turned down by several labels in the industry, Jay-Z, Damon Dame Dash, and Kareem Biggs Burke started their own record label. They pooled their resources to form Rockefeller Records. The foundation of the label occurred in 1995 and acted as an independent outlet for Carter's debut, Reasonable Doubt. Jay-Z has said, "When I made my first album, it was my intention to make it my last. I threw everything I had into Reasonable Doubt, but then the plan was to move into the corner office and run our label. I didn't do that. So instead of being a definitive statement that would end with the sound of me dropping the mic forever, it was just the beginning of something. That something was the creation of the character Jay-Z."
Jay-Z's real name is Sean Carter, as most of us know, but how he got the nickname Jay-Z is that when he was coming up, he became very close and began to collaborate with a rapper called Jaz-O, and Jay-Z's name had always been kind of jazzy as well, so he took that Jaz-O and changed it to Jay-Z, which is in some ways a tribute to Jaz-O, who was his mentor, but also the Jay-Z train in New York, which goes to Brooklyn. It was an homage to kind of his roots, which is taking the subway, taking the train out to Brooklyn from the city, from Manhattan. So it was a kind of, it has a dual meaning for Jay-Z, and that's why he took the name.
Once Jay-Z as a character was cemented, after the universal critical acclaim for Reasonable Doubt, he reached a new distribution deal with Def Jam in 1997. But it wasn't until 1998 when Jay's big break came. Hard Knock Life, Ghetto Anthem, provided him with the biggest hit to date, reaching number 15 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 2 on the UK singles chart. In this clip, Jay cleverly samples the theme song from the musical Annie.
You know it's hell when I come through. The Life and Times of Sean Carter, Volume 2. For those drilled out. All my niggas locked down in a 10x4, controlling that house.
Seemingly a strange inspiration for a rapper, but there was a connection. I wasn't worried about the clash between the hard lyrics and the image of Redhead Annie. Instead, I found the mirror between the two stories, that Annie's story was mine and mine was hers, and the song was the place where our experiences weren't contradictions, just different dimensions of the same reality. Lyrics like, "Instead of kisses, we get kicked," resonated with his experiences growing up in the projects, and although they were not orphans, a whole generation raised themselves on the streets. As Jay-Z's career was on the rise, something happened in 1997 that had a serious impact on him, namely the death of the notorious B.I.G. The rappers had been friends since they were young, both growing up in the same neighborhood and attending the same high school. Jay recalls how he just got off the phone with B.I.G. before he was shot, and he was meant to fly out to L.A. the next day. It is clear from this clip how much of an impact this had upon Jay-Z.
As I spoke to him, like I just spoke to him, I was like, nah. You know, like I immediately dismissed it, like, you know, you bugging. He was like, you know, something happened, I'm telling you. Son, my man Gotti had called me. So I was like, nah, go make sure, go find out. You know what I mean? I think that's a rumor I just got finished speaking to.
Biggie paved the way for rap music, and his legacy can still be heard in the modern music landscape. Jay didn't just lose a friend, but lost his musical inspiration. Biggie's death meant that there was an opening for the king of rap. Jay-Z was about to fill this position.
It's like the cherry on top. You know, you make music and people accept your music all around the world. You sell records or whatever, but then you're nominated for awards, so it's like the cherry on top. It's great.
Back in 1999, a year after Volume 2 was released and 2 years after the death of the notorious B.I.G., Jay-Z was the biggest young star hip-hop had to offer. It's easy to see why his next album was hotly anticipated. This is when things became serious for him. It seemed to be a push in the right direction and lead to the release of The Blueprint in 2001, which is often cited as not only Jay-Z's best album, but one of the best albums of all time. The album's lead single, Izzo, was the first big hit for Kanye West, who produced 4 of the album tracks and kicked off the craze for early soul samples in popular music.
Early on in Kanye's career, he was famous for speeding up samples of old soul records. He was known as a producer, but he also had the desire to want to be a rapper and had been practicing. He was actually pretty good at it, but because his background didn't really match the gangster rapper image of the times, a lot of labels didn't really want to take the risk in him, didn't think he'd sell, and wanted to keep him behind the desk doing the production. And it was really only the success he had on Jay-Z's Blueprint album and that relationship he had with him that enabled him to actually finally go ahead and make his own rap tracks. I guess the rest is history because he's proved them all wrong.
In this clip, you can hear Jay-Z sampling the Jackson 5's I Want You Back.
Cops wanna knock me, DA wanna box me in, but somehow I beat them charges like Rocky. H to the Izzo, V to the Izzy. Not guilty, he who does not feel me is not real to me, therefore he doesn't exist. So poof, Van move, son of a bitch. H to the Izzo, V to the Izzy. With shizzle, my nizzle used to dribble down in VA. H to the Izzo, V to the Izzy. That's the anthem, get your damn hands.
By 2001, the New York rap scene was a complicated web of rivalries. Jay-Z's beef with fellow rappers, Mobb Deep and Nas, inspired a diss track called Takeover. At the Hot 97 Summer Jam concert, he famously premiered the track while projecting a childhood photo of Mobb Deep member, Prodigy, who was dressed as Michael Jackson. The lyric from the song being, "I don't care if you Mobb Deep, I hold triggers to cruise. I've got money stacks bigger than you. When I was pushing weight back in '88, you were a ballerina. I got your pictures, I seen you." The problem allegedly ignited in 1996 when he failed to appear at a recording session for Jay's first solo album, Reasonable Doubt. The beef then escalated, resulting in Nas writing the famous diss track Ether and then on the Blueprint Jay's diss track Super Ugly.
So Jay-Z and Nas, kind of went for each other in their songs. And at the time when Jay-Z was coming up, Nas was the big deal. He was the big name. He was on top of it. And Jay-Z was the up-and-comer. And Nas started taking shots at Jay-Z in his songs, like Jay-Z was driving a Lexus, and he made a disparaging comment about people driving Lexus. And there were these little shots at each other in their songs. And things just got worse and progressively worse. And to one point, Jay-Z actually rapped about shagging Nas's baby mama and how he shagged her in Nas's car and got his fluid all over Nas's dashboard or whatever. And it was really bad. And this was a woman who had a baby with Nas. And when that happened, Jay-Z's mom was actually listening to the song when they debuted the song on the radio and called up her son and was like, "This is not okay. This is a child and there's a mother here and you're taking it way too far." Jay-Z was actually kind of shamed by his own mom, and so he called up Nas and apologized. And that was the beginning of them kind of finding peace. Of course, we saw them later going on stage and actually performing together. And when they went out there, the audience goes absolutely insane because the audience knows that these two guys and their music lyrically have like killed each other in their songs. But all of a sudden now they kind of put it together and managed to even perform together on stage. It was incredible. Jay-Z was invited by MTV to go to their spring break. Now, those of us who watched MTV back then will remember that spring break was this kind of wild freestyle. You would never see it on TV today. But you had artists kind of get up on stage outside at the beach, and they had like real teenagers on spring break in the audience dancing. Now, that is the first time that Jay-Z and Beyonce met. She was there with Destiny's Child. He was there as Jay-Z. And he was a fair bit older than she was, and it wasn't like they performed together. They certainly didn't have the same style of music at that time. They met on the plane, and they actually were seated together next to each other, and they started up a conversation. They didn't immediately start dating. In fact, Jay-Z and Beyonce wouldn't even see each other again for almost 2 years after they first met on the plane. But what started in that conversation in the air was a friendship, and they would text each other and call each other, and at the time, Beyonce actually had another boyfriend. Jay-Z and Beyonce were famously secretive about their relationship for years. They never talked about it, they weren't photographed together, and it was all kind of known that they were a couple, but they really, really tried to keep it out of the spotlight. I remember interviewing Beyonce when she was in the movie Dreamgirls, and we were at the Cannes Film Festival, and I had been specifically told not to ask her about rumors that she and Jay-Z were engaged. And her publicist was adamant she could not talk about this. And of course I did ask, but I waited till the end of the interview, and she was absolutely lovely and said, you know, I don't want to comment on that, but she didn't deny it. And that's when we knew, really, that these two were serious.
It's interesting in pop culture whenever, you know, people will speculate, you know, it ends up, whenever there's like the speculation and mystery, it ends up making something bigger than it probably needs to be. I mean, you can look at it with like Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, you know, and I think in the pop world, Jay-Z and Beyonce kind of occupied a similar kind of role, even though obviously neither of them had like a major pre-existing relationship. Here you have somebody like Jay-Z, who's like playboy figure with like a million, you know, has a song called Girls, Girls, Girls that came out the year before that, and all of a sudden, you know, Beyonce is suddenly the object of his affection.
The reason why the relationship between Jay-Z and Beyonce was kept a secret is business. You get it in record companies with artists. The minute an artist falls in love, they're frightened that the sales will be affected by it. So they're always like, yeah, don't tell anyone you're having a relationship, so keep it down. Because they want you to be accessible to everyone. They want everyone drooling over you. You know, they want to have the posters on the wall. And if you know that the person who's a poster on your wall is married or, you know, conceiving with child or something, it's not quite the same, is it?
In 2002, Jay-Z collaborated with Beyonce Knowles on his song, 03, Bonnie and Clyde.
When you have a song called Bonnie and Clyde, with the exception of maybe Ice Cube and Yo-Yo, but obviously the original Bonnie and Clyde version was Serge Gainsbourg and Brigitte Bardot, and they were obviously an item, and, you know, Beyonce and Jay-Z were obviously an item, and so you had this like kind of, you know, double kind of whammy type thing.
I definitely think Bonnie and Clyde started the whole Jay-Z and Beyonce romance. I think you can kind of see the chemistry in the video there, that sparks were flying. I know they were acting in the video, but you can kind of tell sometimes whether they're just putting it on or there's that real emotion there, and I think they had that.
Bonnie and Clyde, Hov and B, holla. All I need in this life is sin. It's me and my girlfriend, me and my girlfriend. Down the ride to the very end. It's me and my boyfriend, me and my boyfriend. That's right. All I need in this life is sin. It's me and my girlfriend. Look for me. Down the ride to the very end. It's me and my boyfriend.
Jay went on to feature in Beyonce's debut smash hit, Crazy in Love.
Well, you know what it was? I first heard it on the radio. I remember hearing it on the radio and going, it's just like, I can't, this is just so, you know, like a James Brown song. When you hear a James Brown song and you just, It's so good, you can't, your face is contorted and the beat is so good, you can't keep still. It's like, trying to do the dishes and it was all going off, you know. And then when I saw the video, that was it. The video is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. It was the way that she walked on the road there. It was a dirty road with a broken down car, but the way she did that walk, I mean, and I always thought that Naomi Campbell was the queen of the catwalk, because she's amazing when she does that catwalk. Naomi's famous for it, but Beyonce tore it up. Everyone was talking about it because no one was quite sure if they were sort of together at that time. And it was just, you know, it was, are they, you know, it's like, is it real? Are they really together? Is it business or what? It was kind of the early stages. But the chemistry that you saw between Beyonce and Jay-Z in that video was electrifying. And they didn't even actually do anything in terms of kissing or anything like that. But it was just the intensity. It was powerful.
You have all these people that, you know, guys that would never listen to an R&B song ever, but all of a sudden they could rap all the words to Jay-Z's verse on Crazy in Love, and they know all the lyrics to Beyonce. And what you're able to do with those kind of hip-hop R&B collaborations is you're able to kind of, you know, it's what the record industry wants. You know, you have a song that girls like, but then the guys won't hate it. Jay-Z with those collaborations, especially Crazy in Love, was able to kind of rebrand himself into this kind of, you know, family-friendly kind of, you know, mogul.
In 2003, Jay announced that his upcoming album, The Black Album, would be his very last, as he was planning on retiring in order to focus on other ventures, including nurturing more artists under his record company label and focusing on giving back to the community. He felt like at this point, he had given everything he could give to music. During Jay-Z's retirement, he has become involved in philanthropic activities. In 2003, he and his mother Gloria founded the Sean Carter Foundation, which is to help individuals facing socioeconomic hardships further their education post-secondary institutions.
I'm lucky. I'm a lucky person. You know, I had a talent to do something that I really loved, and it took me to places I thought I'd never see. You know, I mean, my situation could have turned out differently, much differently, you know. So there'll be, my story is a bit of an anomaly, you know. So just making sure that people are prepared for the future and prepared for this world, and especially people that have drive and want to go further. And if, excuse me, and if the thing that's holding them back is something financial, then, you know, I think that, you know, I don't think that's right. I don't think that's fair. So just provide an opportunity for people that, you know, want to further their education and, you know, be successful is important to me. So it's not based on, you know, I was going to go to Harvard, man.
In 2008, the hip-hop mogul created an educational trust for the children of Sean Bell, a black man shot and killed by police on his wedding day in New York. Another act of solidarity came at the height of the protests in Maryland and Missouri after the deaths of Freddie Gray and Michael Brown, when Jay-Z bailed out protesters participating in anti-police brutality demonstrations. Jay-Z has also established himself as a successful entrepreneur with a business empire spanning a wide range of industries, from beverages, clothing lines, real estate, record labels, and sports teams. He has stated that his brands are an extension of himself and therefore are very important to him. Crucially, he realized that he should build his own brands rather than promote someone else's. The clothing line Rockaware was established in 1999. and sold for $204 million to Iconics in 2007. For 10 years, between 2003 and 2013, Jay-Z enjoyed his role as a part owner of the Brooklyn Nets NBA team.
What I stand here and represent is hope for Brooklyn, New York City. I'm a son of Brooklyn. I'm from Marcy Projects. I look into my godson over there, River. I just think about with his beautiful Wolverine outfit. It's very nice and stylish. From the Tom Ford collection. I think about growing up in New York City, I'm in Brooklyn in Marcy Projects and shooting jump shots and thinking I could make it to the NBA. Now stand here as an owner of a team that's coming back to Brooklyn, and the pride in that and bringing that dream so much closer for people from Marcy, from Tompkins, from Fort Greene, from Lafayette Garden. Thank you. Brings me so much pride that I'm getting a little nervous about it, but I'm very happy, I'm very excited on this day, and we did it again, Brooklyn. Shout out to B.I.G.
Jay-Z's return to music was huge, and his 2008 appearance at Glastonbury is one of the most iconic performances of all time. He was the first major hip-hop artist to headline the Pyramid stage, and this fact has notoriously riled the likes of Noel Gallagher of Oasis, who implied it was something that would never have happened in his heyday. I'm sorry, but Jay-Z, no chance. Gallagher complained, Glastonbury has the tradition of guitar music. I'm not having hip-hop at Glastonbury. It's wrong.
How have you reacted to the whole Jay-Z Glasgow situation?
I'm going to say this once. Right? I was asked, as you well know, my opinion about ticket sales at Glastonbury. And that's my opinion, and that's the fucking end of it. Right? Now, when the fucking Church of England Brigade in the broadsheets get hold of it, and have me going down Hyde Park Corner, blasting and slamming, that's bullshit. For the record, I like Jay-Z, right? So that's my opinion. Everybody, if it offends people, don't fucking ask me any more questions, you know what I mean? I should do these things and come along and answer like every two-bit shitbag pop star and just say everything's amazing. So fire away.
Jay's response? Watch the clip of him walking out on stage, opening with Oasis's most famous song, Wonderwall. He has said that the show was one of the highlights of his career. It was one of those moments that taught me that there really is no limit to what hip-hop could do, no place that was closed to its power.
Now I ain't saying she a gold digger, but she ain't messing with no broke. Get down, girl, go ahead, get down. Get down, girl, go ahead, get down. Now when I say get down, that means for y'all to get up, actually. It's reverse psychology. Cutie the bomb, met her at a beauty salon with a baby Louis Vuitton.
Jay acted as a mentor for rap legend Kanye West, and although their relationship has been rocky over the years, in 2011 they released a joint album, Watch the Throne.
Watch the Throne album was huge. I think the production really stood out on that album, and as well the singles In Paris and No Church in the Wild they could translate from the club to just casual listening at home to if you want to get pumped up for a night out. It kind of suited every single style you could think of. Jay-Z and Kanye, they have different flows and stylings, but I think they worked really well together. They knew when one should take the back seat and one should step forward, and they just combined really effectively to make one of the best rap albums of the last decade.
This album came a year after Kanye West's My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, which was an immediate and widespread critical success and has gone on to be widely regarded as one of the best albums of the 21st century. Both Kanye and Jay-Z were on a career high. The two combining musical forces for this album shocked the music industry to its core, brimming with experimental production, lush samples, and an incredible sense of scale. The album was an announcement. Kanye and Jay-Z were kings of the rap game. They originally sought to record a 5-song EP together, but the project eventually evolved into a full-length album. The project features guest appearances from The Dream, Frank Ocean, and Beyonce, as well as posthumous vocals from Curtis Mayfield and, in this clip, Otis Redding.
Crazy when I'm about to go dumb again. They ain't see me cause I pulled up in my other bins. Last week I was in my other bins. Throw your diamonds up, cause we in this bitch another again.
Photo shoot fresh, looking like wealth. I'm about to call a paparazzi on myself. Live from the Mercer, run up on Yeezy the wrong way, I might murk it. Flee in the G450, I might surface. Political refugee asylum can be purchased.
The first track on the album, No Church in the Wild, is a collaboration with Frank Ocean and features a cinematic production style and serves as an ominous opener. The song was used for Baz Luhrmann's film, The Great Gatsby, for which Jay-Z curated and produced the soundtrack.
So you had these two great rappers, but it was really the bass and the production and the beat behind it that got people moving around and was such a big hit. And I think it's like one of those classic vocal hooks or riffs. Once you hear that, you know it's going to be a classic, and they delivered it in that song.
Part of Jay-Z's decision to release Watch the Throne 5 days early on the iTunes Store was to stop people leaking the music. And also this prompted him to take music distribution into his own hands. So in January 2015, he purchased the Tidal streaming service for $56.2 million, which, put simply, allows the subscription listeners to hear music in 4K.
After the birth of Blue Ivy, we see Jay-Z kind of shifting to becoming more of a mogul than just a musician. He's a really canny guy, and he used his platform and his money that he'd accumulated as a rapper to actually create businesses and create a platform for himself. We saw Tidal, which was a streaming service that he set up to rival Apple, and got some of his best friends, including his wife Beyonce and Kanye West, to say that they would be exclusively on Tidal to release albums. He very cleverly leveraged his position, his friends, his contact book, his fan base into business. He became his own manager in some ways, his own record label, and a record label to other artists. He very quickly turned millions into billions, and he became and still remains one of the richest and most powerful and influential artists and moguls in the business today.
The infamous lift incident happened at the 2014 Met Gala.
The big thing that happened before the release of Lemonade, about a year before, was the big lift fallout at the Met Gala between Jay-Z and Beyonce's sister Solange.
I, like many people, probably have watched it dozens of times and seen all the analysis and read all the commentary and also talked to people who were there or know them. And they all basically concur that Solange was actually really angry at Jay-Z because of something he had done or was doing to Beyonce. It was a way of protecting her sister. And you can see this clearly because when Solange goes for him, Beyonce does nothing. She doesn't try and stop her sister from attacking her husband. She doesn't get in the middle. She doesn't say, like, Solange, come on, calm down. Why are you hitting him? She just stands there like almost like a zombie and lets them go at it. And actually, it's not them going at it. It's just Solange attacking him. He doesn't even move. He just tries to get away from her. He doesn't do anything to protect himself. And his countenance is guilt. Solange's countenance is fury. And Beyonce just looks helpless and like a victim. What's really interesting about that elevator footage is that as they come out, Beyonce is completely composed and there is no sign that anything happened. What we do also know is Beyonce and Solange get in the same car and Jay-Z goes to get in and Beyonce's longtime security guard tells Jay-Z, no, you're not riding with him. So again, after Solange attacks her husband, she embraces her sister and takes her home with her or goes out with her and lets her husband be there by himself and find another ride. What that also says is that Beyonce was very much on Solange's side in that whole incident.
There was that speculation, and there was kind of a very confusing statement that Beyonce put out afterwards saying that it had been resolved now, families have these altercations. Solange wasn't drunk when it happened, but all is now well. But it didn't actually address the situation.
Whatever it was clearly about a woman. It was clearly about something Jay-Z had done to Beyonce or was doing something dodgy. And it was a culmination of a lot. With that lift, I think that's really what pushed Beyonce towards Lemonade and what pushed Jay-Z towards 444. I think it was clear that they couldn't keep it under the surface anymore, and they were going to have to tell the truth about what had happened or what was going on. And the carefully controlled image was no longer exactly in place.
Beyonce's 2016 album, Lemonade, was lauded by critics as not only her best, but the singer's most personal work to date. The record addresses her emotional journey after her husband, Jay-Z's, infidelity in a generational and racial context. Tellingly, in an interview with Elle magazine, Beyonce said, "I hope I can create art that helps people heal. Art that makes people feel proud of their struggle. Everyone experiences pain, but sometimes you need to be uncomfortable to transform."
I mean, the interesting thing with that Lemonade album is that Jay-Z kind of helped write some of it, so it's like a couple's therapy session, you know, and you got that feeling in there where the anger and the honesty was there.
Beyonce explained the concept of the Lemonade album to Melinda Matsoukas, the director of the Formation music video. She wanted to show the historical impact of slavery on Black love and what it has done to the Black family and Black men and women, how we're almost socialized not to be together. The fifth track, Daddy's Lessons, is a turning point for the album, with Beyonce linking Jay-Z cheating on her with the experience of her father, Matthew Knowles' adultery.
With Formation, probably the big breakout single from that album, that was Beyonce going back to her roots. She was speaking where her mum and her dad were born and how that made her who she is. And again, there was that police brutality message in there, the iconic beginning and ending of that video of her on top of a police car in the flood. While Formation wasn't perhaps personal in the relationship sense, it was very much, this is me, and she was putting her whole self out there, you know, from childhood through to where she is now.
In 2017, Jay-Z released 444, which was his response to the rumors in Lemonade. The album was Jay's most personal yet and, much like his wife's album, garnered universal acclaim from music critics. Hear how personal he becomes on the titular track.
Apologize, I seen the innocence, leave your eyes, I still mourn this death. I apologize for all the stillborns, cause I wasn't present, your body wouldn't accept it. I apologize to all the women whom I toyed with your emotion, cause I was emotionless. And I apologize, cause at your best, you were love. And because
I fall short of what I say I'm all about. Your eyes lead with the soul that your body once housed. And you stare blankly into space, thinking of all the time you wasted it on all this basic shit, so I apologize.
The album covers a wide array of topics: his family life, relationships, ongoing hip-hop culture, stereotypes, and racism. He directly references lines from Lemonade on the album. On Beyoncé's song Sorry, she sings, "You better call Becky with the good hair." Jay responds on the track Family Feud by rapping, "Leave me alone, Becky."
I think Lemonade was her confessional and 444 was his. You know, it started out with her talking about the pain he caused, and as well as social commentary on Black Lives Matter and other things that are happening in America, with black men getting shot by white cops for doing nothing. And Beyonce, like a lot of people, was upset about that and making a statement. But it was also about the pain that Jay-Z caused her in her marriage. And then 444 is Jay-Z basically apologizing. You know, he says, I'm not the man I should have been, and you deserved more, and that kind of stuff. So it's really interesting because so much of rap is like cocky and ballsy and like putting yourself out there as the king, the best, the ultimate. That's what they do, and that's why rappers fight with each other, because they're all jockeying to be the number one, and they're bragging constantly on their rap songs. And so to have a guy who's the king of rap, really, do an album where he's like saying I'm sorry and he's contrite and humble, it's not something we've seen before. It's incredible. It's really incredible, and it shows that once again Jay-Z is changing the game.
In more recent years, Jay has taken a strong stance in terms of his political views. In the 2016 presidential election, both he and Beyoncé supported Hillary Clinton at her rally in Cleveland, who in turn praised Jay-Z for addressing oppression, racism, and the criminal justice system.
And I want to grow up in a world where my daughter has no limitation, where our daughter has no limitations. She feel like she can be whatever she want to be in the world. And this other guy, I don't have any ill will towards him, but his conversation is divisive, and that's not an evolved soul to me. So he cannot be my president. He cannot be our president.
He has openly criticized the police, stating, "I had to deal with the cops when I was hustling, and that made sense. I had to deal with the cops before that too, because even before I started running the streets, I was on their radar just because of who I was. But when I was done with the streets and done with my one major brush with law enforcement after I left the streets, I still wasn't done with 5-0. He challenges why rappers are treated like criminals. Some rappers do commit crimes, yes, but so do some teachers, some accountants, some politicians. He concludes that rappers, on the whole, are young black men who are telling stories that the police do not want to hear. The fact that law enforcement treats rap like organized crime tells you a lot about just how deeply rap offends some people. They'd love for rap itself to be a crime, but until they get that law passed, they come after us however they can.
When Beyonce and Jay got really tight with the Obamas, it really opened up a lot of questions and speculation as to whether or not they had their own political ambitions. I don't know that they do ever intend to run for office, but I could see in the future them getting far more involved politically, perhaps setting up a lobbying group or foundation to release prisoners who were held unjustly, or to change drug laws, or to do something. I could see them in the future using their platform in more political, social ways. Additionally, I think we'll continue to see a lot of music released, but we also may see more management. As they get older, Jay particularly, he may decide to focus on managing other rappers. It may be that Beyonce, does the same with other groups or other singers. I think we will see shifts and changes. This couple has so much money. They're something around 1.5 billion, maybe even 2 billion by now. They don't need to do anything. They can just sit back and go on yachts. But they're talented, they're ambitious, they are strong-willed, and I don't see them slowing down anytime soon.
Jay-Z is one of the most successful, acclaimed, and talented musicians of all time. He changed the game, and without him, music, and more specifically hip-hop, would not be in the medium it is today. Making rap accessible to a wide audience, he has never lost who he is. He never shied away from past problems and often voiced his story in the hope of helping others struggling with their lives as he once did.